Thank you for tuning into our seller interview series. Up today, we've got an Amazon FBA and e-commerce business for sale in the apparel and accessories niche. Created in April 2016, this business makes $3,339 per month in net profit, and the listing number for the business is 45623. We do these interviews to give potential buyers more information about both the seller and the businesses they're looking to purchase. We hope these insights are helpful for you in making a buying decision. We've got the seller with us today to go through the business and cover everything from niche selection to traffic and monetization. Austin, thank you for coming on here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Jake. How are you doing?
Doing mighty fine myself. It's been a bit of a hectic morning, but now I get to have this wonderful conversation with you about your awesome business, and I'm looking forward to it. But before we dive into the questions that I have, I want to go ahead and run through a little quick summary of the business. Again, it was built in April of 2016, has a monthly revenue of $18,873, expenses of $15,534 to make for net profit of $3,339, which is generated on a 7-month average. Included in the sale of this business are the Seller Central account with 86 SKUs, domain and all site content and files, social media accounts, and trademark. Austin, can you tell us a little bit about your background in building and running online businesses?
Yeah, sure. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I got into e-commerce. Started off with in the Teespring days, early Facebook ad stuff, and then that progressed into Shopify and, started with some small Shopify stores and then finally clicked on to this store. So it was a pretty linear progression.
And how has this business gone for you since you started it?
It's been good. It's opened a lot of doors to other opportunities, and it's also, taught me a lot through this process because it was the first, real business that I had built.
And can you kind of describe to me how you came up with the idea and why you opted to go with Amazon and your own e-commerce platform?
Yeah, sure. So I was traveling at the time, actually, before I had launched this. In one of the countries that I had visited, there was a specific product that a lot of the people around me that were also traveling were going kind of crazy about. They had never seen it anywhere else. And that kind of planted the seed for the idea. And then once I had returned back to the States, I started looking into it. How available was it? Were other people selling it? Were they marketing it good? And such as that. So from there, the opportunity looked good and I went for it. As for why I did Amazon as well as Shopify, it was actually more accidental. So I had previously sold on Amazon before, and me and my partner, we sent the stock to Amazon to use it as just a fulfillment situation. Well, if we have the stock there, we might as well create a listing as well, because the hard part's already done, the SKUs are in the system. And then the listing took off and it performed very well and has become, a large part of the income in the business. So that's kind of how we ended up with both the Amazon and the Shopify going at the same time.
So why have you decided to sell the business today?
So in the same regards as it opening the doors to a lot of opportunities, one of those became an offer to join a partnership with another consulting business that was just paying me way more than this business was at the time. And I underestimated, how much that would end up consuming me and time-wise and energy-wise. And when it came down to it at the end of the day, I just really didn't have the time or the energy to put back into this company.
You mentioned that you don't have the time. So how much time does it take to maintain this business?
Currently, from my time, it takes nothing. I do have a partner, and he is the one that currently takes care of all of the tasks. I'd estimate that he spends about 3 to 4 hours a week on these tasks. All of them could be outsourced, whether that's going to be, me outsourcing them to somebody that's going to transfer over with the sale, or whether the new buyer wants to outsource it themselves. But for me personally, it's not my time. It's more on the energy aspect, the ideas that go behind it and the strategy of, where did we want to take it next? And that's where I wasn't available.
You mentioned strategies for where you want to go next, and I want to talk about the future opportunities in a little bit. But right now, you also mentioned that, you have people helping you run the business. You have a partner who's been doing a lot of it. Is he the only other person who has been working on it, or do you have a couple other employees as well?
Nope, just the partner.
So then, can you walk me through everything that he or she has to do to run the business on a week-to-week basis?
Yeah, sure. So the main task is probably inventory management. So just, looking what's in stock and projecting the future sales, putting in the order for that, and then making sure that goes smoothly. Once the order's in place, has it been shipped? Paying the invoice, has it arrived back in stock? That's the main task, and that needs to be done monthly or biweekly, depending on how the buyer wants to manage their cash flow, and that's going to depend. Some minor customer support. There's about, I'd say, an average of like one a day, maybe two a day. And yeah, that's pretty much it that I can think of off the top of my head to maintain what's currently running.
And obviously on Amazon, you have their marketplace, but how are people finding your e-commerce store?
Currently, they're not, unless, there's some repeat customers coming in. But previously, before I had joined this other partnership, it was via Facebook ads.
So then you mean you're not running any Facebook ads currently?
Correct.
And that is due to the lack of time and energy that you spoke on earlier?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So when you look to the future, how would you go about growing this business up? What are some of the major opportunities?
So it's going to depend on, the skill set and the experience that the new buyer is bringing to it. But the two ways that I would do it, if I, lost the partnership that I'm working with today or whatever, or more so the previous plan of what we were going to do with it, is a twofold plan. So one being on the Amazon front, because it had worked so well, the launch strategy that we did would be to launch additional products in the same niche or similar niches. Basically, in the, without exposing the niche, the specific one that we're in on Amazon is very not competitive, I guess you could say. So when you come in with just the correct marketing and good listing, good brand content and all of that, it was a cakewalk. So yeah, that's what I would do on the Amazon front. There's 2 or 3 products that we had our eye on. We even had some samples produced. So that's something that we can pass on to the new buyer on what those were, and where to get them and source them. We had the suppliers and everything, as well as how to launch it if they need help with that. And then on the other front would be returning to the Facebook ads. That's where we received a large windfall of profits in the spring when we locked onto some good Facebook ad campaigns. So, maybe getting another ninja back in there on the Facebook ads and going that route. Those are just the 2 skill sets that complemented what I was doing, but there's a huge opportunity as well on Google. There's tons of organic traffic for the niche. So if somebody, is an SEO or knows a good SEO, that's one angle. And Instagram influencers, we'd never even scraped the surface with those. So those are, 2 other angles that somebody else might be skillful in.
And then on the other hand of the opportunities are risks. Do you feel like there are any major risks associated with this business that a buyer should be aware of?
Absolutely. So the biggest risk is going to be inventory management. And that is something that jammed me up back in the spring. At the same time that I had, taken on this new partnership, it was all kind of at the same time. So as Facebook ads scale up, or as Amazon scales up, you're required to purchase a lot of inventory up front. And, if the campaign starts to fail or Amazon sales slow down or whatever, you still have already paid for the inventory. And that's the biggest risk associated with this sort of business.
Have you struggled with inventory management and keeping products in stock in the past?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's always been my biggest downside. My biggest weakness has always been the inventory and cash flow management.
So were there any big stockouts that you had that cost you several months of sales?
Yes, I wouldn't say several months, but a month. Yeah, that's happened before. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So the business, as I said earlier, has been consistently earning over $3,000 every month on an average here. So the months that have been below that, was that due to poor inventory management?
That's hard to say because it's, I think we need to kind of reframe the question there because the average really isn't 3,000. The average for the last 7 months has been 3,000 because not only is it out of season, but I haven't done anything with the business. I would say that number is due to it, due to stocking issues or whatever, because when it does come into season and when things are more consistent, that number is way higher.
Mm-hmm. So then if you want to talk on a 12-month average, you notice a huge number in April, $30,000 in profit, March 18, May 25. So what happened in those months that causes such a high bump compared to the rest of the year?
Okay, so it was a 2-part thing that happens there. So one, that is the same time that if we're talking the seasonal aspect, specifically for the Amazon, that is where you're going to see a peak then. So March, April, May, June, and then July a little bit too. Those are like the real hot months for this product. So that's why you saw a spike there. And then you also see a spike on the Shopify side as well, because that's also when Facebook ad campaigns pop off way better. So, right now when the product, isn't in season, it's not as hot, it's very hard to compete with other advertisers on Facebook. When it comes in season again, the conversion rates go up and it's easier to get those, good cost per purchases on the Facebook side. That's why you see that bump.
And that's something that you see every year. You have the seasonality of the products then?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So if you had to sit down with someone who asked you, how do I get started with my own e-commerce store? What would be the big piece of advice that you've learned? What's the biggest lesson that you've learned?
So you're saying for starting from scratch, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just brutal testing, product, ad, but more so just seeking out somebody who's further along in the process than you is what I would suggest, because you're going to make your testing more accurate.
Mm-hmm. So would you commit to a non-compete?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how much support are you willing to offer a new owner during the transition period?
Plenty. I forget exactly what I stated there was like a fill out form for this, but I'm open for email support. I'm open for Skype calls, whatever they need. Yeah. I'd love to see this thrive again. I'm just not going to be the person behind it.
Mm-hmm. And that totally makes sense. And given the results in the spring, and if that really is an annual thing that you see, it's clear that this business has a lot of potential here.
Yes.
Are you open to negotiating on something like an earnout?
I wouldn't prefer it. I guess you could say that I'm open to it, especially with the seasonality coming up. But with it being, the price of the business is less than what it earned in net profit in the last 12 months. So, that being said, and the relatively smaller size of the sale, I don't like the idea of an earnout.
Austin, if you were looking at this business from the perspective of a buyer, why do you feel like it is a business worth buying?
Two reasons. So one, all of the potential avenues to go down, especially when somebody, puts their deposit down and sees what this niche is and speaks with me and sees all the angles that they can go. It's just a huge field of opportunity here. That's the first part. The second part being, like I had just previously stated, it's for sale for less than what it earned in profit last year. So that's a pretty good deal for anyone.
Austin, thank you very much for taking the time to be here with me today. I really appreciate it. And it really sounds like a business that, if someone comes in with the time and energy to devote and can recreate the spring, it really seems like you have a winner here.
Mm-hmm.
If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. And if you want more information, the link will be below the video that will take you to this marketplace listing. If you're watching this on the listing page and want more information, become a depositor today. When you make the deposit, one of our business advisors will be in contact with you, and you will be given everything you need to review this business. Have a great day.